The Luffy versus Katakuri battle was quite fascinating to me because basically we started to see a concept that is present in our everyday life that you might not necessarily be aware of, because I wasn't aware of this until recently. Now that I've become more attuned to my gifts, my abilities, my understanding of the world, I realized that they were showing this within One Piece because it is something that there are certain individuals, there are certain people, and it's a very small percentage of people, because obviously it took Luffy some time to figure out what Katsukuri was doing and why he couldn't hit him in the first place until he was able to figure that said thing out. And I'm going to touch on that in this video. And as many of you, and maybe you may or may not be aware of, that this is all about growing on this channel. It's all about helping you understand your gifts, your talents, your skills, your understanding, so you can start to be in the same boat and become stronger than you ever have been beforehand, so you can defeat stronger and stronger enemies that may or may not stand in your way. If that's something you're interested in, obviously you can subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, I wanted to let you know that like Luffy was always confused because he didn't understand, he didn't have the ability, he didn't have the haki ability to see a couple seconds in the future to figure out like where the hit was going to be coming from, as Katsukuri did. And this is where I say, like, I myself have had these gifts as well. So like there'll be times, and there's this concept from this one person that you can look into where it's just like the whole state of our own being is all within our own magnificent imagination, which our imagination is anything that you yourself can control and or perceive in the third or fifth or sixth dimension, whatever word you want to use to be able to identify with that. But it's kind of like going into like the mirror world, where it's just like they aren't in this like main place of fighting, but like they're in this like secret subdivision of this place that they were fighting in beforehand, which that's just actually connected another dot for me as well too, because sometimes you have to go into this different reality to understand that there's this different power that does exist. So like being able to see a couple seconds into the future, something that sure, like, yeah, he can do it outside of like where he's at right now, but like being in this different dimension, this different world, that's where he was able to truly unlock and understand that like I can see a couple of seconds into the future. I can predict what's going to happen prior to it actually happening, which is fascinating because I also just kind of thought about this as well too. Like Luffy, he did have the same ability to be able to predict the movements beforehand, just not to the same extent that Katsukuri was able to do so. So like your strength, your ability to predict future events can grow in a significant way. Like last night, prime example, I was at the gym and there's something that was like, I knew that it wasn't time for me to go home yet, but I was like, I'm going to chat, I'm going to talk with this girl. And I was talking about this on a video a couple days ago. And maybe this will let you know that I kind of batch these videos, but nonetheless, we were having this conversation and we were chatting, and I knew that it wasn't time for me to go because I knew that there was something going to be coming up into the field that I was in right now. And I just knew that I would know when the time was right. And that's exactly what ended up happening. I just knew that, okay, this is time for me to stay here, have a conversation, chat for a bit, and then I can go home afterwards. And some of times it might be like, well, why are you doing that? I'm like, it's just what I do. It's like when I was on the hike, I went to this hike this one day, and it was one of the hikes where it was like an 18-mile hike or something like that. And I went up to the first lake, and I was like, well, I'm already at the first lake, so I might as well go to the second lake. And I started walking. It was like, okay, there is something for me up at this second lake. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know exactly what was going to be there. I just knew that there was something that was there that was for me to have this interaction, for me to have this conversation. Ended up running into these couple of other people, and these other people, like, they were questioning me about the beliefs. They were sharing me some ideas around Christianity. They were sharing, like, asking me about how I believed in certain things. And then one of the dudes, him and I ended up working out and lifting together and had a different conversation around religion and around certain concepts. And I was kind of questioning and challenging like where he was at. I was like, dude, if you want to look at it this way, you can. If not, like, no worries, you can keep doing the exact same thing that you're doing right now, which is why I do the coaching and why you can book a free call down below. 30 minutes, completely free. After that, it would be charged if we do jive and if I can be of service to you, which I know that I will be able to, as I've been able to be of service to many other people as well in the past. And this is where I say, I have this ability to see into the future, and I have this ability to identify things that are going to happen. It can sometimes happen in conversations where, like, I'll be having a conversation with somebody. I'm like, dude, I had already had this conversation with myself like the night beforehand, and now it's just being reflected to me outside. It's a trip. It takes some work and it takes some practice. But like once you're able to become more attuned to this, then all of a sudden this whole different world, this whole different reality, this whole different existence opens up to you. Because there's another time as well, and I know you can think that I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but to me it doesn't seem like that. There was this other time where I was out and I was talking about this in like the last video that I did, where like you have to break down the whole house before it can like be rebuilt. And there's this thing also that I've touched on, like around human design and how basically what I am and how like my design says it is for me is like I have two ways. Like I have some ways where like I will help somebody else like change their trajectory in their life, and then the other one is like other people will help change my trajectory in my life. And one of these guys that I met at this bar that I went to out in the place that I was at for this work travel experience, I ended up running into him at the bar. Like I was just going to the bathroom. He had mala beads on. I was like, dude, that's awesome. Like I like your beads. He's like, oh, thank you. Then he ends up coming to the bar because I ended up going up to like these other people. And I was kind of like, this was back when I didn't know how to like control my emotions. Like I was just letting my emotions, not even control, but I wasn't aware of my emotions as much as I am now. I didn't have the understanding. I didn't have the emotional capabilities to like express them in the ways that I wanted to express them in. So with that being said, I ended up going to the bar, and one of the persons was like, hey, if you want a drink, and I was like, oh, thank you. And that, it just, even that like got me emotional. I was like, this is kind of crazy. I ended up having this conversation with this dude at the bar. Had never met him. He was saying the exact same things that I needed to say, and I wasn't as attuned to the gifts that I have now back then, but it was still something where like I even straight up told him, I was like, it was either this or therapy. And he's just like, I think talking to people is therapy. And I was like, that's true. And it was just fascinating with how this random dude that I had never met beforehand, and I ran into him at the bar, and he and we just connected it. Like we jived, we had these conversations, and he's like, what would you regret more? Would you regret going off and doing like your own thing and trying that for a year? Or would you regret like staying here and like doing this thing? And I was like, I think I'd regret staying here and not trying to do my own thing for a year. So I ended up doing that, which I've been grateful for. It's been one of the most amazing, miraculous experiences that I've ever had, because I've grown more emotionally, I've grown more like spiritually, I've grown more physically, like I've grown more like with my own understanding of myself. And now I'm able to do things that I myself want to do compared to doing things that I feel other people expected me to do. And this all comes down to me being able to identify and like see into the future. It's a very small, subtle thing, and obviously it's not always going to work out in the ways that you want it to work out in, but it's always going to work out in the ways that you need it to work out in. And this is where I say, like, me having the trust, the ability to know that like this is the thing that needs to be done, I'm just going to be sharing these things. I'm going to be experimenting with these aspects of myself, of the ways that I can connect with you, that I can share these different ideas, because I figure if I'm able to share these different ideas with you, maybe something will resonate with you. Maybe this will plant the seed within your mind so that then you can be like, maybe there is something to it. Because these conversations, these places that I go, these people that I interact with, it's basically almost fate, divinely organized. Wow, that was a tough word for me right there. It's divinely orchestrated. That's what I was trying to say. By me being able to have these different conversations, by me being able to be at the right place at the right time, because we're always at the right place at the right time. We're always doing the things that we need to be doing, that we believe are going to best be serving us. And sometimes we have to fight or go up against different opponents that we didn't think that we could defeat in the first place, because that opponent is there to teach us something. They're there to help us level up, so that then the next time we come up to a stronger opponent, we can use those experiences, those fights, those battles, those interactions, those conversations that we have had in the past to help us overcome this other hard, challenging aspect beforehand. Because as I touched on in a recent video where I said, nobody knows where you were at or the things that you have gone through. They don't know the mountains that you've climbed. They don't know the conversations that you've had. They don't know the nights that you've wept. They don't know the books that you've read. They don't know the conversations or the struggles or the exercises or the obstacles that you've overcome. You're the only one that knows that. Like, that's it. You're the only one that knows all the good things that you've done and all the bad things that you've done. And then when you go out into the world, sometimes you might be like, oh, I'm going to show all these other people like all these good things that I've done, or I think that I'm a POS because like I've done all these bad things. But it's just like, they weren't necessarily bad. And this is where, like I say, my coaching and having me come into your life is going to be an incredibly wonderful thing, is because I'll help you either reframe them into a more positive way, and then you can actually use them for your benefit, because everything that is happening to you is happening to you because it is here to benefit you in some way, shape, or form. Or two, I can just be the person that gives you like an open ear that you can listen to, that you can hear, that'll hear you out, that'll present these different ideas and questions. And if you have, or are wanting advice, or whatever it may be, I've got you covered, because I'm just like your mirror reflection. I'm here to help you go down a different path, or help you stay down the path that you're going down. Just really kind of depends on where you're wanting to go. And it comes from the ability from being able to predict in the future. And if you want to be able to predict in the future, the best way that I would say to be able to do this is to meditate. Like, meditate on like what you want to feel. Feel as if you are actually experiencing that feeling right now in this said present moment. Feel as if like you have everything that you've ever desired. The views, the money, the girls, the body, the exercise, whatever it is that you want. Like, imagine that said thing, and then start to behave and act as that person does. And then you'll start to pick up on these small subtleties, these small subtle cues. And one of the meditations that I would recommend, I'm being able to figure out how to pick up on subtleties is just the meditation between trying to figure out like when your breath is changing from an inhale to an exhale. It's one of the best ways that I have been able to do. At first, it took me some time to be able to get to it, and I don't do it as much as I once did because that's not my type of meditation that I like doing all that much. I like more like the third eye stuff because that's another way to tap into like the unseen world and know that like there's something here for you. You might not necessarily know what it is, but like just wait and then you'll know when you know, type of thing, which is fascinating to me. And it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful world that we live in. It truly is. It's one of the most magnificent places that I have ever experienced. And being able to see into the future a couple of times, or like no conversations that are happening a little bit beforehand. At first, I was like, it's still the coolest thing ever. But at first, I was just like, I didn't get it. It confused me. I was like, how is this happening? How is this possible? And you can, I guess, look at it from this point of view. Is like Luffy first had to like visualize within his mind by closing his eyes and being like, okay, I feel and I see this happening before it happens. And that's exactly what you do as well too. You just might not necessarily be cognizantly aware of it as much as I am. And that's where I'm sharing this with you to help you get to the point to where you can become more cognizantly aware of that said thing. Another good meditation that you can do is like you can grab a candle, or like look at a light for a while, something that's bright. I'd say a candle just because I feel like that's going to do the least damage to your eyes. And look at the candle, look at the light. And this is something that Luffy did as well too, so you can do it as well if that is something you're interested in trying. He didn't do it with a candle. He did it more like just like being able to see like, okay, I see where this is going to go. I'm going to like shut off my mind and then like just like let things happen. And it's like, oh, boom, I dodged the thing that needed to be dodged. Interesting. Because like with the candle, if you sit down and you start a candle for a couple of minutes or something like that and you close your eyes, you'll be able to see the after image of the candle within your mind. And at a certain point, maybe it may dissipate, maybe it may not dissipate. It depends on how well and how long you've been able to stare at it and how well your attention is without having your attention veer off. And then from doing that, you'll be able to realize like, this candle in my mind, it seems so real. Like I'm able to identify that this is like an actual thing and I see it like picture perfectly clear within my mind's eye. So if I can see that within my mind's eye, then why if I started to see other things within my mind's eye, and then I associate a feeling to that said thing, so that then I'm going to say it, so that I could use that ability to be able to create my reality, to create my existence, to manifest anything that I've ever wanted to manifest in this existence that I have right now. And it might not necessarily come in the exact form or in the exact way that you want it to come in. It's the reason why what I said, like the dude that I met at the bar, I didn't expect to meet him at the bar, but I was just like, I'll just show up, whatever happens is the thing that happens. And then when that happened, I was like, okay, so this stuff is real, and it's happening instantaneously for me now. It doesn't have to take months or years or weeks or days or whatever it is. Like it happens within seconds because now is new. Remember that. Now is new. Now is new. Now is new. Because regardless of what you have done in the past, those don't dictate you. All it does is they give you different aspects or stories that you can relay and call upon whenever you need to call upon them. Because like when I do these videos, I don't know the things that's going to need to be said or the correlations or the stories or the analogies that I'm going to make. I just let myself do the things that need to be said in the ways that they need to be said. Because I figure that's the best way that I do it. This is how I have conversations with people. This is how I have conversations with you. This is how I live my everyday life. And it seems like it's working out fairly well for me. It has, at least in other aspects. So I figure if it's working out for me there, it'll work out for me here as well too. And also if it works out for me, it'll work out for you as well.